So first things first, we will be making the focaccia bread, and what you will need is 350 grams of strong white flour. I have already weighed and measured this flour. I'm trying a bit of an experiment today. I'm doing 200 grams with strong white flour and 150 grams with white spelt. You will also need some lukewarm water. You'll need 210 mils of lukewarm water and 15 mils of olive oil, which you add to the water, and half a teaspoon of salt. You will also need 7 grams of yeast. I am using fast action dried yeast. So let's begin and prepare. I am just about to add half a teaspoon of salt. I'm making sure to put the salt at one side, and I will add the yeast at the other side. It's quite important to keep them separate as they interact with each other. So I have put in now the 7 grams of yeast. Now we are going to add a mixture of oil and lukewarm water, and we will be mixing this in gradually. To start it off, I'm using a spoon just to get all the mixture combined. You can actually use a bread mixer if you want, but I think doing it natural and the traditional way of mixing and kneading on a Sunday to make some beautiful bread, what could be better? So I'm adding the rest now of the water, and I will continue mixing this until I get a nice ball in which I can knead with. Okay, I've now transferred the dough onto the work surface, and I have put a little bit of flour on the bottom so it doesn't stick, and I will start to knead. I suggest for this kind of bread to knead it for about 5 to 10 minutes, hoping that you keep everything straight and together. Okay, so in 5-10 minutes after I've kneaded, I'll come back. At this point, I've been kneading now the dough for about 5 to 10 minutes. Now at this point, I think it's important now to get some olive oil in the centre of your work surface and just kneading the olive oil really well. As this is an Italian bread, we want that beautiful rich bread focaccia flavour, and olive oil coating this flour will make it absolutely delicious. Keep kneading for another couple of minutes, and then we will place back into the bowl, and this will need to proof for about an hour. Okay, we have now fully kneaded the dough and it's ready to proof. Get your bowl that you used earlier and just add a little bit more olive oil into the bottom and just coat the dish, and then we will put our soon to be beautiful focaccia bread in here. If you just coat the bread again with the bottom of all the olive oil that you've just put in, and we will leave that on a windowsill or somewhere warm, an airing cupboard, anywhere that you have that is warm. We will leave that for an hour. Make sure you cover it with a damp cloth. Okay, while we wait for our focaccia bread to prove, We're going to get on next with the Italian ragu. Dead simple to make, and it can go in the oven. You can also do this on the frying hob if you want, but I prefer it done in the oven, low and slow, for about 2 hours. So first things first, we're going to develop our ragu, and what you'll need for this is the following. You'll need 1 large onion, finely chopped, 1 large carrot, finely chopped, 2 celery sticks, finely chopped, and some sun-blushed tomatoes. I've got about 2 tablespoons of them here, and we're going to put them in our oven dish. You don't actually need any oil for this. You can add oil if you want to, but we don't need any oil because it cooks and infuses in the tomato. So to that, a full tin of chopped tomatoes. Then you will need a 400 gram tomato passata, all in. And then you will need 2 tablespoons of tomato puree. I'm just adding the tomato puree now, 2 heaped ones. Now we'll move on to adding all our herbs to this ragu. Okay, I've got the herbs all ready and prepared, and for this meatball bake ragu, we will need a heaped teaspoon of garlic. I like a tiny little bit of heat in this dish, so what I've done is I've just added 2 bird's eye chilies to it. There'll be 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 3 bay leaves, 2 teaspoons of Italian style herbs, 2 teaspoons of basil, 2.5 teaspoons of oregano or oregano, and 2 teaspoons of salt. So we add all this into the mix, making sure we get all the herbs and spices in, and we will then add half a lemon to this, making sure to not get any seeds in, so always use a sieve or a lemon juicer. Okay, so everything's added now, and we'll give this a good mix around. This will create our ragu in preparation for our meatballs. So I would put this on 160 for about 2 hours, and I would stir frequently, keep an eye on it. It may need a little bit of water, it may not. Just keep an eye on it. As you know, cookers can vary massively. So that is our first part of our ragu, and it will go in the oven now. Okay, for the next part of the recipe, we will be making our Italian meatballs, and I am using a plant-based mince, but you can use a regular mince if you want. I've got roughly 400 grams here of the plant-based mince. To that, we're adding 80 grams of breadcrumbs. We're adding 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds, half a teaspoon of salt. There is actually a small clove of finely chopped garlic underneath the parsley there, but so it's 1 clove of finely chopped garlic, a teaspoon of parsley, a 1/4 onion, finely chopped, and some normal paprika, not smoked, just normal. We'll then need to add, once that's all mixed in, lots and lots of black pepper. So we will now add in all of the mixture, and this is where we have to get our hands dirty. A lot of people have asked me, how do you make meatballs that are plant-based? So you can't use like the frozen soya. What you have to use is the fresh plant-based. And as you can see, it just works exactly the same as what a mince would. So you can't use the frozen soya because it tends not to work as well. But as I say, any of the Neutrali range or meat-free range that's the fresh mince substitute, you can make meatballs perfectly fine with them. So I'll continue to mix this and then we'll show you roughly the size of the meatballs that we're going to make. So as you can see, that's all been mixed really well and it is one big whole. Perfectly combined structure, so any vegans out there or people who prefer to use plant-based things will have no problem making these meatballs from scratch using the fresh range. And so now we're going to take off a piece and roughly a little bit smaller than a golf ball create our meatballs. This really is a fun thing to do as well, and to get your children or other family members interested in cooking and wanting to do more fun cooking things. It's dead simple, it's really easy to do, and you know, it brings everybody into the family, especially during this strange time right now where we're locked down in isolation and we're all looking for things to do and projects to do. It's a really nice thing to do for all the family, and it makes a beautiful meal. What more could you want? Okay, so here are the finished meatballs. I don't think anyone would be able to tell that these were made from a plant substitute. They certainly don't taste like they're made from a plant. I like to refrigerate these for about an hour. Just so they're set and the fix, and then what we'll do after that is fry them. Okay, it's been an hour and as you can see it's massively increased in size. We're going to make 2 focaccias, so remove it from the bowl. And I have already prepared, I've oiled 2 baking trays. Well, you typically use them for cakes really. And we're going to place one in here and we're going to push it all the way to the sides, creating little indentations just to get the air out. And we will do it the same with this one. I'm just pushing it to the sides, like so. And you will need to bake these at 200 degrees for about 25 to 35 minutes, dependent upon how your cooker works and varies. As we know, all temperatures vary. So I'm gonna just sprinkle some rosemary on here like this and just push the rosemary in to the bread mixture. And on this side, I'm just pushing the rosemary in to the beautiful bread mixture. And we're going to add some garlic on each, and we're going to just push this in to the bread mixture like so, and the same with this one, evenly distributing it, and then we will brush with some olive oil ready to go in the oven. Okay, we've just put our focaccia in the oven and we are now ready to fry our meatballs. They've been resting in the fridge for about an hour now, and they're perfect, ready to fry. I've put a tiny bit of oil in the pan and I'm just allowing that to get a little bit warm, not too hot. You don't want it sizzling hot for when you put these in, and then we'll fry them. Just a quick tip with frying the meatballs. Don't use a wooden spoon. For some reason, wooden spoons, I've never been successful with them, and I don't know why. It seems to break up the actual the structure. So I always use just a normal spoon, and as you can see, we're getting some colour on them now. Okay, now the focaccia has been in about 30 minutes and we are going to take it out of the oven and see what we've made. Okay, the focaccia is now out of the oven and it smells amazing. I'm going to put these on a rack now just to cool down a little bit, but they're perfect in every which way. They are perfect. I'm really proud of these. I didn't think the spelt flour would have worked as well, but it's worked amazingly, and spelt is such a good grain to use and it's very underrated. Delightful. Okay, the ragu has been cooking away for about 2.5 hours now, and it is also smelling delightful. We will now add our meatballs to this. Oh, it smells amazing. It's so rich. All the vegetables have cooked down so lovely. It's smelling amazing. So we will now add our fried meatballs to the dish. Now this is where you'll need to turn the oven up to about 200 now. So we're going to coat each of the meatballs in this amazing ragu, rich Italian sauce. And we're going to cook this for about another 20 minutes and then we will add our cheese. Keep the lid on when you cook this for the next 20 minutes. And then when we come to put the cheese on, that's when we take the lid off so it can all bubble and be amazing. I'm so impressed with these. Oh, they have really cooked unbelievably well, especially with the spelt. Experiment success. Okay, the meatballs have been cooking on 200 for another 20 minutes and everything is wonderfully infused. Vegan meatballs perfectly stuck together fine. As I say, you can use meat if you wanted to, if you're a meat eater. Okay, time to add the cheese. So I'm using smoked applewood cheese, and I'm just going to sprinkle this over the dish, and then this is where we will leave this off so that the cheese can melt. This is a plant vegan based cheese and it melts amazingly well. Make sure you cover it and distribute it as evenly as you can. Be careful, don't burn your fingers. And then we'll put this in the oven. I'm going to turn this down to 180 now, and then it'll be ready to serve. The amount of cheese that I've used for this is roughly 100 grams. Okay, this has had about 10-15 minutes in the oven. All the cheese is melted down. It looks absolutely amazing. Time to serve. Oh, so beautiful. Beautiful meatballs with amazing focaccia and an absolutely amazingly rich sauce. Oh, what more could you want? Enjoy.